Hey guys, this is Hetu and welcome back to etlqalabs. So guys, I'm back with another set of ETL testing interview questions which have been recently asked in many companies, and these are the common questions which have been asked in various companies, right? So the purpose of asking this kind of questions are basically for interviewer to understand the candidate, whether the candidate has the legitimate experience or the candidate has really worked in ETL testing or not, right? So I thought that I will do this video so that you can actually grasp this knowledge, and next time when you go for the interview, you are well prepared and you will be able to answer all these questions, right? And we have tried to answer all these 9 questions in a much detailed way, right? So we will look at each of these questions and actually, help answer, right? So let's start then, right? So let's start the first question basically. The first question says, what are the different types of testing performed in ETL data warehousing projects? ETL are data warehousing projects, and explain with examples each of the testing type, right? So basically, interviewer wanted to know, like, you are working in ETL testing or data warehouse testing, but what kind of testings you are doing, right? What are the different types of testing you are doing, right? So this we can actually categorize in 5 different categories, right? So first one is basically the data completeness check, right? Data completeness checks basically comes into picture when actually you have to make sure the source and target records counts are matching, right? I mean, you are actually 100 records in source and 100 in the targets are actually transferring or not, right? The record count. And again, this count may vary because based on certain condition, let's say you have some filter condition, then the record count will not match. But the idea here is basically to ensure that your record count, after applying your business logic, after applying your transformation logic, etc., it's actually matching, right? I mean, there is no loss of data. You are not actually truncating something, or you're not actually kind of removing or filtering something which is beyond your business logic, right? So that is the whole thing about the data. So I'm just giving you a simple example, basically one example you can give. You can go into much detail, but for the scope of this video, let's try to focus on at least 1 or 2 examples, right? The source to target row count check comes under data completeness checks, right? Now, the second kind of checks that we perform is the data transformation testing, right? Because the ETL process whole thing is basically T, right? The T in ETL, basically ETL, T is basically talking about the transformation logic, right? You actually apply a lot of transformation. So ensuring that all the transformation logics are applied properly, all the business rules that is required are applied properly. That testing is basically called as data transformation testing. Simple, right? And the third category is basically data quality testing, wherein what we check actually the data that is actually we are sourcing from various source systems, be it a flat file, be it a relational database or any SAP database, any kind of source systems, right? From where we are actually sourcing the data quality, we actually check whether the data is correct, right? In correct format, right? Because let's say you have 2 different systems, you are sourcing the date field, and one of the date field actually providing as a DDMMYY, other one actually MMDDYY. These are the 2 different format, right? So what we have to make sure that we are actually getting the consistent format or not. If you are not getting the consistent format, and this is the data quality issue, right? This is what we have to check. And after transformation, we have to make it consistent, right? That is where the transformation T comes of ETL, right, into picture. And we also check the data duplicacy, inconsistency, etc., whether everything looks fine basically after the transformation is done. So this is actually data quality check are testing. Now the performance testing. This is very, very important, and people actually do not talk much about the performance testing, right? The whole thing about the data warehousing, because data warehousing is actually built for years, right? Basically, we store a lot of historical data, maybe 10 years, 20 years old data. You imagine the amount of data the data warehouse actually stores, right? So I'm talking specifically when actually we need to have the data storage for multiple years, the efficiency of your query should be very fast, right? When actually you fetch the data for certain analysis purpose, the efficiency at the response time of your query, right? Query execution time should be much faster, right? Query execution, I would say. Query execution should be much faster, right? And then at the same time, the feed processing should also be having some limit. Let's say you are actually uh, actually working on a ETL thing, right? ETL process, which actually supposed to complete the end of day job. And actually, after end of day, it actually supposed to load the data, right? And um, it it is supposed to take, let's say, 2 hours to load the data. What if it is not able to complete that? Because after that, let's say you might want to generate the report immediately after that, right? In that case, imagine guys, it's very difficult because you need to have this feed processing time shorted here, right? Otherwise, there is a problem and you will not be able to actually report your generate your reports, and all the subsequent process after thereafter will be failing, right? Because it will not able to produce the data in the data warehouse, right? You might get the stale data, which is the old data, right? So that's the reason performance testing is important, and we need to actually complete the performance testing for any kind of data warehousing, or even the ETL, plain ETL projects also we need to perform this, right? And now the the last one, basically the error handling. So we also need to make sure our system is actually able to handle the negative scenarios or errors basically. So error could be the file itself, the source system file itself is basically empty file, or maybe there is unavailability of the file itself. The file has not arrived on the source file from where actually we are extracting the data, right? Are the wrong format file, etc. So how actually your ETL process is actually able to handle this gracefully and correctly, that is also something that we have to test it, right? Because these are the very normal scenario which might happen day to day basis, and your system should be equipped to handle this kind of error handling scenarios, right? So this is about the different type of testing and what all we do, and this is what actually we have explained using one example, right? Now let's go to the second question, which talks about how do you handle the errors during ETL job processing, right? Guys, imagine. So, um, like ETL job processing, right? The first thing is basically the developer's job is basically to implement the job correctly and make sure the developer is able to handle all the corner cases, all the errors that might occur during processing or during running the jobs, right? While the ETL is processing, job should be able to handle. So this is first of all not the job of tester to develop. First of all, the developer should be able to actually write correct logic and correct error handling scenarios, right? This is first thing. Second thing, in the event when actually you are running ATL job, let's say for testing purpose, let's say the job is promoted in test environment and you want to actually test whether the ETL job is running fine or not, right? In that case, if QA uncovers any issues which can be of the below nature, right? What kind of the natures it can have? So let's say the job fails, right? So what exactly first thing the QA need to do is basically go and check the error logs or the session log or any kind of, let's say, workflow log, etc., and trace the error. Many times you will find that the errors are basically self-explanatory, right? You'll be able to find something in that particular job. For example, if file is not available, you will say the missing file or some kind of error that you will find. Or if job is failing because of some access issue, it will say you are not authorized to access or something like that, right? So you will actually, when you read the session log or workflow log or error log, whatever log, it depends on the in the ETL tools, etc., and then you actually able to actually understand what are the different kind of errors that you are getting. Based on that, actually you can actually uh, try to see that if you can fix it and rerun the job again and see it's working. For example, if you don't have file, right, and then actually see that file is not available, you place a file in the source system, rerun your job, and then this time it should go fine, right? So this kind of things, right? And then other could be, the server, the ETL server itself is down, right? Sometime, because in test environment it's quite possible, right? And then you see that whether you are able to you are able to get it correct message or not, right? So this is part of your error handling as well, right? Testing, right? So it's more of a testing, like how your servers, if it is down, then what kind of error message you are getting. It should be very graceful, right? Server has crashed while your job is running. So ideally what should happen is whatever job was happened, let's say in the middle, the server crash happened, right? So the job, I mean, half of the data is loaded, let's say in the data warehouse. What should be the case, right? How you can handle this? So basically the rollback should be in place, right? So rollback means the data that you have actually loaded into target should be actually rolled back again, right, to the previous state before starting the job, right? Those kind of scenarios you should be able to handle, right? So these are the different kind of error handling testing that we should do, isn't it? And these are probably, the part of your negative scenario test that we have looked at before, right? So this kind of things you should be able to perform and make sure that your jobs are robust enough, right? Now, once you find all these things, and then what you can do is basically you can go ahead and you can raise a defect in Jira and assign it to developer, right? Because these are the things that you have done, but at the same time you have to make sure this is actually communicated and raised in the system officially as a defect, right? Because this is a defect, right? Any kind of things, anomalies or any problem is a defect, and assign it to development team for fixing it so that they can actually fix it, right? So this is the, how do you handle the error while ETL job processing. Now let's go to the third question, which is basically talking about what is your approach when you identify a defect in ETL testing and detail out the required information that you provide in the defect for developer to investigate, right? So basically it's talking more about defect management system. What happens? So once we actually identify a defect at any stage of testing, right? It can be, a verification, or maybe doing while testing the job, or data testing, etc. Any point of time, right? Wherever you find this kind of any defect, we raise a defect in defect management tool. In our case, we are actually using the Jira tool. Jira tool is basically to handle the test cases and also defect management. And what we do, we actually record the following details in the Jira against the defect. So we actually raise a defect, issue type as a defect, and our bug, and we what we do is basically we provide all this information. Okay, so what are this information? Description, short description of the issue, right? That we provide, this has happened or what has happened. I mean, some description about that issue, what has happened, right? And then we also need to provide which environment this has happened. So whether it is happening in SIT, system integration, or user acceptance, or pre-prod, which environment it is happening, that you have to mention. And who is the person who actually tested, so reported by. And then status, basically when first time you raise it, it generally is new status, but there are some other status of that. So what is the status of the defect, right? Now severity, priority. Severity is basically what is impact, and priority is how soon we should fix it, right? And then steps to reproduce. I mean, we have to give the detailed steps one by one, like, step by step, like, open this and run this job and check this, check that, and you will find this issue. Exactly, you have to able to tell all these steps so that, developers can actually perform the same steps, and developers should be able to reproduce the error, right? And then and also we have to provide the attachment or screen details where exactly this issue coming, right? It will be very helpful for developer to dig into that, right? So these are the few things how you do the defect management, right? So this is more of a defect management things, right? Now let's go to the next question. It talks about what are the challenges that you have encountered during ETL testing phase, right? During ETL testing phase. So these are the some of the challenges that we face, right? So first challenge is basically when you comes to ETL or data warehousing testing, it is the large amount of data, guys, right? Large amount of data, because you actually um, get a lot of data from different source systems, right? And at the same time, in your data warehouse also we have lot of data that you keep historically, right? We actually maintain the historical data, right? So what we do, actually we get the lot of data from the source systems. So in this scenario, what are the remediation way? Because you can't actually test all this data, huge amount of data, right? Like probably 10 GB or 20 GB of data, you can't actually do it manually. You can't test them. So what exactly we need to do? We need to actually identify and automate some of the regression tests. So it's talking about the challenges that you face. So you can say that large volume of data. What the remediation steps that we have done is we actually identified and automated regression test cases, right? Which is basically running most of the test cases frequently. We actually automated them using Python or using shell scripting or any other, scripting language we used. Now, second is complex transformation logic. This is another problem, right? The transformation logics are not very straightforward. Many times it's very difficult, right? So understanding the whole end to end, transformation logic is difficult. So what is the remediation step? How do we handle it? Basically, you can say that we were actually involved into design phase early. stage of design discussion, just to gauge the understanding of end-to-end holistic view, right? So you know what you are actually working with developer, and while actually they are also breaking down all this transformation logic, you also understand, and then it's very easy for you to understand the complex logic, right? This is another challenge. So only thing is you involved along with developer, right? And then you understand together. Third problem is the data quality. Third challenge, basically, not problem, data quality issue. Data quality issue, it happens, right? Because there are a lot of systems and disparate system, right? I mean, it's not one system, right? Heterogeneous system from where we get the data, and there could be, as I said, there could be a lot of issues with the same data. As I said, in the date format itself, there could be different date can come for the same thing, right? From the different system. In that case, it's important that we actually perform some sort of automated checks, and then you handle this kind of things, right? And so this is about the data quality issue. Remediation step is implementing automated checks to run on various source systems. Now, the last one is really that squeezed timeline, delivery timeline. Because see, for testing, you don't get enough time for testing. This is always the case, right, in the QA, and this is always a challenge for everybody, right? So, what basically we say that clearly define the test strategy to incorporate the scope of testing and also not include not in scope. So basically, you get some short time, and then you can't actually focus on everything. Best way to actually maintain all these things in a test strategy document and get a sign off from everybody that you say that okay, I am going to test this, and these are the not things which are in scope. For example, you can say that performance is not in scope, right? Otherwise, if you're not documenting this, tomorrow people can ask you why you have not tested this, why this there is a lot of performance issue and all those things, right? People might ask you. You can go and say that, look, this is documented in test strategy, and we agreed based on the timeline, we agreed that we will be actually able to test this. So you have to be very smart here, right? You have to actually safeguard yourself and your team, and at the same time, you be fair to everybody, right? Don't be, I mean, so you can safeguard yourself, right? And everybody here, right? So this is about the challenges, right? Now let's go to the next question, which is talking about what do you do when you identify a critical defect in your last round of testing and fixing will delay the release or productionization. So this is very interesting question, guys, right? This you might get it in behavioral round or the managerial round as well. They might ask you, like, these are the very scenario based question, right? Like, how do you handle this scenario, right? You get actually, let's say tomorrow there is a release, and today you got some critical bug, right? And then what exactly should be your step, right? They want to check, like, how do you handle this kind of adverse situation, right? Or how do you handle this kind of pressure, right? So the best answer that you can say is review the defect and assess the potential impact due to this effect, right? Defect, right? Because you have to actually understand the defect first and then see that what can be the impact of this defect on the overall system, right? First thing, you need to know exactly, you need to able to quantify the impact on the system, first thing, and then only actually there is a point of talking further, right? And then what you do is, in case defect is determined as a critical, there could be two things, right? If you assess the impact and then you find that this is not something very critical, this can be medium or low category, that people will be happy to accept it, right? I mean, you can actually fix it later or something like that. I mean, the you can take a call later. But then if defect is determined to be critical, then people will not take the call, right? And then what exactly we have to take? You have to do couple of things. One thing is definitely we have to go for the release, right? First thing is just schedule a meeting, urgent meeting, right? And state the impact of this severe or critical defect with key stakeholders. So who are like development, testing, customer, and product manager, everybody, right? Involve everybody, all the key people, and mm, and then tell them, right? State the impact of this issue, and then you also tell that defect root cause, what is the problem, right? If you know that actually what is the problem, and then also understand the remedial method, right? What exactly we need to do, right? As if you want to fix it, and the revised timeline to complete the regression and retesting, right? Once, let's say, this is something that we have to agree, right? Let's say you agree, okay, you are going to release this, let's say after 5 days, and then before that you actually agree all the action, remedial action. Okay, developer will do this, and then provide it. And you also say that, okay, this is the timeline for me to complete regression. Because look, this is a critical bug and it might actually impact the another component also, which was working before. So as a fix, you actually need to do the regression testing of the whole critical, feature, right? Critical jobs in ETL case, actually we can say all the dependent jobs, etc. That you have to do the regression and also retesting, because after fixes it should work perfectly, right? Now, in case of release, in case the release is regulatory committed, right? This is something that release can be deferred. Let's say it can be deferred by 1 week. You can actually do this release after 1 week. But there could be cases where actually we have committed some regulatory deadline to the regulators, right? This kind of things mostly happens in financial industries, or maybe in what do you say, healthcare industries, right? Uh, we are actually having a lot of regulators like HIPAA and all those different regulators. They have the certain deadline and they can't actually. So if you are actually crossing that timeline, regulatory commitment, if you are not able to make, then you will be fined, heavily fined, right? In that case, what exactly we need to do? Actually discuss in that particular call, discuss the absolute scope, which means let's say you are actually uh, you know um, you want to deliver 10 feature, for example, right? 10 different jobs, for example. You actually here what actually you nail down, what exactly are the absolute in scope job that we have to deliver. Let's say 10 out of 10, maybe 5 are actually required on this particular date and 5 can be later. Now you actually break it down and understand that, okay, the impacted one is there in my scope, are working fine, or they are having issues. All those kind of things you can actually do here if it is regulatory commitment, because you can't increase the date. And then what you do is agree a plan to achieve, including agree a plan how you actually you do. Let's say those 5 jobs are basically critical to be delivered tomorrow, and none of them found to be actually having bug, right? So other one job which is actually out of that 5, which is actually have the deadline next week or maybe next month or something like that. You what you can do, you can ask your development team to decouple these jobs from your code base, so that you can actually deliver only 5 which are actually absolute mandatory for the due date, right? This kind of exercise we always do, right? So we take this approach, and this has to be done again together with all these stakeholders, and they have to agree, right? And then finally what we say is, okay, we are actually going to deliver this, and people have to actually risk accept it, okay? To decouple the release, we say that, okay, we are not going to deliver all of 5 or all of 10, maybe remaining we will be doing in next week or something. You have to accept this risk. Okay, there could be some risk, right? Because there could be some dependency as well, right? And we don't really know until it is impacted. I mean, it's too early to say that. So those kind of things actually we have to say risk accept. Everybody has to risk accept and sign it, right? So then you are actually, this is your step as a QA, right? Senior QA, or you are a QA lead or QA manager. These are the things that actually you should follow, right? All right. I think this is about something very scenario based. I think very important as well. So keep it this in mind, right? Next one is, how can you prevent such release slippage in future? Now, since we discussed that we can have this release slippage, like we cannot meet it in this release. It might have like slippage of 5 days or 10 days or whatever, right? What are the different? Now we assume that, how can you prevent this kind of things happening in the future, right? There could be few things that you take lesson out of it, right? I mean, you uncover the defect all of a sudden tonight, and then tomorrow is a release. This is not something good sign, right? You could have actually found it much before, right? I mean, that is the ideal scenario, right? I mean, you should not find like 1 day or 2 days before, because you know that if you find something, developer will take time to fix it, identify, and everything will take time, right? So ideally, you should have found it much earlier, right? So these are the basically few things that actually you have to take as an action point, right? So what are the things that we have to do? So we can implement the best practices to prevent the release slippages like this, right? First thing we can do is start early testing. So we have to, early is better, right? Because the cost of defect is much lower when you actually find it in the early phase. For example, when you find in the documentation phase or when you find in the requirement phase itself, then fixing that requirement is very very easy, right? I mean, you have not done any development based on that, so you go and fix it. It's very small cost of fixing that thing, right? So start early testing. Second, testing, I mean, here we are not actually running something, but rather actually verifying your requirement documents and clarifying doubts, etc. That is actually much required, right? So start early testing. Second, involve design discussion. So you have to be involved into design discussion so that you understand everything and you also understand any deviation from the normal design pattern that you are following. Maybe there are some exceptional consideration that people are actually doing it just to meet just to meet some cases, right? I mean, in the normal way, if you are going to do the development, you will not be able to do it. So there will be some exception scenario or exceptional cases where developers will be actually considering in the design documentation or design discussion, right? So those all the things you should be knowing, and you should be actually focusing your testing on that deviations, right? Because actually this is not something very normal. You are taking a different route. Like developers is actually planning something different to fix those kind of patterns, design patterns. In that case, basically you have to focus more on that particular exceptional consideration kind of design, so that you will find more of a bug there, right? Now, the third thing is involved into component development phase as well. So let's say there are different component in ETL, right? First of all, yeah, there will be a, design documentation, and then the architectural design will be released, right? For the database schema design will be released, and then people will start developing that tables, schema, views, etc. Everything, right, in the database level. You actually have to involve yourself there and you start actually testing there, no matter your ETL job has not started even, right? But you have to involve on this component. So one component can be database, other component can be the informatica related things, third component could be the scheduling, how you are actually scheduling your jobs in future and all. So these are the different components, right, where you need to be involved yourself so that you can actually gain more understanding, and this gives a lot of chances for you to test them early as well, right? Now, fourth point is maintain a RTM, that is requirement traceability matrix. So which basically talks about how many test cases you have or how many requirements are there to ensure the test coverage or the requirement coverage, right? Let's say you have 5 jobs and you actually for each of these jobs you actually ensure that we have the test cases written against each of these jobs, which will actually ensure that you are covering the entire scope of the requirement, right? So this is also important as a best practice, right? Sorry. And the last one is basically peer review of the test case execution. So this is much important because see, peer review is something that you come out of your unidirectional thought, right? Because let's say two people are working or testing one particular job, they might have the different view, right? So that is the reason it's very important that the first round, let's say you are doing a testing on the first round on one particular job, you find everything fine. Next time you should not actually go and test the same job. You should rather pick something that other person have tested, right? And in the second round, you should actually assign the job one to someone else, not you again, so that that person actually can test from his own perspective, and that is called actually cross functional test execution, right? So you should actually believe on this, and these are the few of like not all of them exhaustive list, but these are the main important best practices that we should follow for any kind of defect are the release slippage, right? To prevent any release slippage in the future, right? So these are the things that you can do. All right, let's go to the next one. Next one is basically say, let's say due to unforeseen reason, customer want the scheduled release to prepone by a week, and you are in critical testing phase, how would you handle this situation? So this is again like a behavioral question, a managerial round of question, and also people might ask you in your technical interviews also, because they want to understand like how do you respond, or what is your view, or what do you think. If you haven't worked in real time system or projects, then you will be able to answer it, right? So they expect this kind of question. Now, how you can answer this basically is understand the reason for. First of all, what you do, your approach should be straight away. You should not simply accept it, right? If customer is asking, please deliver it 1 week before you, but before your planned delivery date, you can go and ask, understand the reason why they want actually early, why early release is required, right? Is it something that they are simply asking because of their own internal problems, or this is something that cannot, or something, as I said, right, something regulatory commitment or some problem, some very very big reason about it, right? And in that case, if not, right, if that is not the case, it is simple ask, okay, maybe some personal region or internal region within their customer side team, then you have to actually negotiate it, right? You should not put undue pressure on your team or yourself also, right? Because if you have to deliver it early, obviously you can't do the work, right? 1 week work we can't do it, so you have to actually take some risk in terms of skipping some of the test cases, right? And which is not something we should be doing it in a very fair chance, right? So you negotiate it and you say that if it is not something urgent, can we actually stick to the same deadline or not, right? If it's that's not critical to the business, right, you can say this, right? First thing, you actually have a call with customer and understand this. Second, if the release is critical due to business outcome, the business want actually this to be released somehow, because of it's mandatory for them to do it, then you have to do couple of approaches here. You have to do few things. What you can do is, you can actually discuss internally with the team. First of all, you have to actually go and discuss with your team whether somehow you can actually make this feasible. Can we meet this 1 week prior release deadline or not, right? We have to actually discuss with them and see if we can actually somehow manage it. Okay, it is possible without too much of a stretch. Little bit a stretch if you do, then are we able to do it, or we can actually manage our time efficiently and we can do it. We should actually try all the time, the first one, internal team within our team, right? Because we are working as a team and we should actually understand this and we should know whether we can do it. Okay, but remember that it should not be like you are forcing your team to come on the weekends and make it happen, etc., right? If they have to come on the weekend, they should be actually given the proper compensation or whatever is required as per company policy and all, right? We should not put undue pressure, as I said, right, with on them or yourself as well, right? Second, agree to the revised date. First, let's say this is this is fine, then you do nothing. Okay, you can actually say that okay, fine, we can actually deliver it. You can actually say the customer, okay, we'll try to do it, and majority of the time we okay, fine, we can do it, right? Second point can be agree to the revised date if that is possible. Okay, this if this is possible, right, and then you agree to the date and that's fine. Otherwise, schedule a meeting with all the key stakeholders and agree the following aspect. What are these aspects? If team says that we can't deliver it, and then you have to agree this. So what exactly we are talking here is, we actually say that clearly present the current testing status including outstanding defect. So you say that where we are and how much testing is still pending, how much we have completed, right? All those things, and tell them the defects, like what are the critical defects which are actually not fixed, which are awaiting fixes, and which are new defects, etc. You can just give some brief understanding about the current testing, and then explain the scope which can be untested due to this early delivery. You also mention them, okay, this can be untested, this can go untested, we will not be able to get the time to test this thoroughly, right? So you might actually do some superficial test basically on this if it is possible, or you can actually clearly then we can't test them, right? Now agree the risk except for any post-production defect and business impact. Now you have to actually say that okay, since we are not able to test entire thing, you have to agree that this could be the potential problem. This can be potential impact on the business because of not able to test this, right? This can be impact on this, and this could be the business impact or outcome, right? So that we have to agree. And again, once we agree, you send a formal email, get the documentation done, get a sign off from them. They should agree, okay, fine, I am fine, and I am ready to risk accept. All the key stakeholders should be able to accept it. Then what you do, actually, you keep the document with you and keep it somewhere in repository for the future reference, right? This is what should be your approach. And in this process, you are actually keeping all the fairness and you are actually maintaining any uh, problem for you or your team for tomorrow, right? So you are actually able to successfully handle this kind of scenarios, right? So this is what actually approach we should take. Now let's go to the eighth questions, which is which ETL tool are you using in your project and reason for choosing the tool for your project. This is something, people might ask you. So we can say that, we are, since we have learned some bit about Informatica, we can say that we are using Informatica Power Center in our project. And then you can say the reason for selecting this tool is as below. Like, team was fairly new in handling data integration projects, which means the team was not actually very experienced team to handle the data integration project, like ETL or data warehousing project. So we chose to have the Informatica because Informatica gives a lot of good supports, and we might need the prompt help and support from the Informatica support system or Informatica team, basically, right? And they also help us end to end setup, etc. So that's the reason we chose this licensed tool, because Informatica Power Center is basically a commercial tool which is licensed one. So this is the reason we chose it, because the team was not very experienced team, so we wanted help, right? Second, clients had no limitation with the budget, so clients had no issue with the money, so they were actually happily able to spend the money on the this licensed tool Informatica. Third is due to the critical system, right? This is the critical system. Since this is a very critical system, then it's like the highly available, right? What does it mean is basically, since this, you can say that since this system is basically we load the jobs and make sure the data is ready before the deadline by the end of the day, and we need to ensure the data is available on time, and then in that case we want our tool to be much stable and highly available, so that we can actually we can meet our deadline for the data delivery, right? And the fourth one, you can say that the customized support to help resolve issues in effectively and efficiently manner, efficient or effectively, right? So you can say that these are the few benefits that we get when we go with the paid tool or the Informatica Power Center. You can just tell them, right? So this is what it is. Now let's go to the next one, which is, can you name few popular ETL tools used in the markets, right? So you can actually just give this information, right? The open source tool, these are the free tools basically. Talend Open Studio, then Pentaho, and then Clover DX. These are the three tools. I think Talend is also having a commercial, but this have two versions basically. One is community version and one is the commercial version. But yeah, these are the tools basically which are actually open source. You can use it for free. You can install it and you can use it for your project as well, right? So there is no license required for this tool, so you can use them, right? Second category of tool is commercial tool, and these are basically from the different vendors, right? And they are not free, they are paid tools, a licensed version, right? One of them is the most powerful is the Informatica Power Center, and there are some other tools within the Informatica, right? Now, second one is the IBM's Data Stage, and then Microsoft SSIS, and SAP Data Center or SAP BODC, right? These are the three, four type tools. I mean, there are some more basically, but these are good enough to actually explain them. These are the tool paid tools and these are the open source. Just to check that you actually really know that what are the tools are available in the market. In case in future you might have to work on other tools, then you should be aware of it, right? So these are all about, this complete interview questions and answer session. I think this makes sense, and you are able to really understand these questions. And yeah, guys, that's all for this video. And if you have not subscribed this video, I would kind of, it will be great that if you can subscribe, share with your friends, and also comment if you have any questions around it. And yeah, I think these are all we wanted to cover as part of this video. Until we meet next time, happy learning. God bless you and bye.